Senator Boudreau take a couple of questions?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Senator Batters.
Thanks very much. So first of all, the Carney Liberal Government finally brought its budget forward for 2025 on November 4th, about more than a year and a half after the last budget was tabled by this Liberal government. And now a major budget item involving about $12 billion is being put before us just a few months after that. Why didn't the government bring this forward as part of its budget once they finally brought it forward?
Senator Boudreau.
I thank the
Senator Boudreau.
Colleague for the question. Obviously, Bill C-19 clearly deals with the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit Act. It doesn't deal with the budget. That is a separate bill that was tabled here in Parliament in both houses and is still being debated. So I don't think it's my role to argue as to why or why not it wasn't part of the last budget. The important thing is that it's here today because Canadians need this support today. That support was clearly proven, if you will, in the House of Commons by fast-tracking the approval, the acceptance of this bill, and I hope that the Senate will do the same thing.
Senator Batters.
Thank you. Well, you are the sponsor of the bill for the government on this, and I would like to have the chance to be able to ask the government leader in the Senate these questions, but he is, I don't think, giving a speech on this topic. So you are the person that I have to ask on behalf of the government to answer these questions. And this is a major budgetary item. It's not just something that the government, or are you telling me that the government never contemplated it when they were actually putting their budget together over that year and a half that they were putting it together, and even the last, the 6 months before that, from the time that the government was elected and to the budget time frame? Why didn't they include a $12 billion item in their budget?
Senator Boudreau.
Well, again, I thank the member for the question, but again, I would remind my colleague that I am the sponsor of Bill C-19. So I am not the sponsor of the budget. I can't speak to the budget. I can speak to Bill C-19 and what's being proposed as part of Bill C-19, and it's an investment of over $11.7 billion over the next 6 years to help families and individuals most in need across our country. That's why I wanted to be the sponsor of this bill in particular, because of its importance. And Canadians need this help now. They need it as soon as possible. Government has committed to delivering these allocations as quickly as possible. That's why they chose to take an existing program, an existing benefit, and build upon it, as opposed to trying to build something from scratch. They wanted to make sure that they were able to put these checks into the hands of Canadians as quickly as possible, and that's what Bill C-19 would do.
So my other questions are, first of all, I actually was watching when Prime Minister Carney was making this announcement on I think it was January 26th. And I recall him saying, he kind of looked back at his finance minister for confirmation, but I recall him saying that it was going to be about $9 billion. Yet on February 2nd, the parliamentary budget officer costed this measure as a $12.4 billion amount. And then I think near the end of one of your answers to me just today, you were stating that the measure has an $11.7 billion cost. So why the large difference between these numbers, and what is the actual cost of this major program?
Senator Boudreau.
I thank my colleague for the question. To the best of my knowledge, the cost of this program will be $11.7 billion over 6 years. That's the number that I've received from the department in my briefing notes. That is the number. Now, the difference between the 12.4 that the parliamentary budget officer released, there are some components, they calculate it slightly differently than the Department of Finance does, and the very last quarter payment of the last fiscal year, the Department of Finance doesn't calculate it, but the PBO office does. So that's the difference, because the difference is about, I think it's like $600 million. That would be that extra quarter so it's really just the way they calculate it differently. But I've been assured, and asking the question multiple times, that 100% of the people that receive the GST credit today will receive these increases this year, and then that number is expected to grow moving forward in the subsequent 5 years because of the 25% increase and the eligibility being set year after year. It's expected that more Canadians, up to over 500,000 more Canadians, will benefit from this credit between now and the next 5 years.
Another supplementary, and then I'll go to Senator Downs. Supplementary, Senator Batters.
Thank you. Yes, I'd be curious to then hear why Prime Minister Carney thought the amount was more like $9 billion. But anyways, I'll move on. I'm wondering, so the income threshold, what is the income threshold that someone would need to meet in order to be able to receive this? Is it the same as the GST credit? And if so, what is that threshold? And you noted that 12 million Canadians would receive it. So I'm assuming that the income threshold for receiving the GST credit is very low. And isn't that unfortunate that 12 million Canadians would potentially earn that low of an amount, that they would be receiving this dollar?
Senator Boudreau.
I thank the member again for the question. I'm not sure I can give a wholesome answer to the question in terms of eligibility, because it all depends on one's revenue, depends on the number of kids you have. So it's a scale. There's a chart there. I don't have that chart in front of me. But as I said in my previous answer, 100% of the people who qualified for the latest GST credit in January of this year will qualify for this 50% top-up, as well as for the 25% bump starting in July. And then, obviously, year after year, people have to, based on their previous year's income tax, determines what their qualification amounts are. So that will vary. But 100% of the people receiving it today will continue to receive it, and over 500,000 more Canadians over and above the 12 million who receive it now. It's expected over 500,000 will receive it at the end of the program.